Hello, please, as the program commences, I can't hear anything. Hello?
No, we are still trying to do the setup for the officer to take up this thing. So please just sign with us.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you can share now. You can share now.
Good afternoon, everyone. You are welcome to today's episode. Today's webinar is in a different dimension, as we'll be discussing matters that concerns everybody.
Hello, sir. Reduce the volume of one of your devices.
Okay, I think it's this. Hello? How is it now?
Yes, it's okay now. You can go ahead.
Okay. So I'm Babatunde Odedele. I'm your host for today's program. So today, we are having another dimension of the webinar, as I've said earlier. I'm sorry for the delay. It was due to some technical issues. So we'll be discussing fire safety management. This is a topic that concerns everybody, be it a school student, so be it a student, be it working class, be it a market woman, market man, anybody of any race. Because we are talking things that really concerns our well-being. This is thing that can save our life. This is what can save our life at any time. It can also save our property at any time. So we are all involved in all these hazards on daily basis. Be it in the kitchen, maybe in the kitchen sometimes we use gas, we use stove, there can be a fire outbreak. We can be in our vehicles, there can be a fire outbreak in the vehicle as well. And many times we go to the filling station to buy fuel. They'll be saying that, don't answer call, don't answer call. All those things, we have competent resource person here today that will help us shed more light on this. And that will fire outbreaks and how we prevent ourselves and protect our families. So I have before me High Fire Superintendent Ajayi Olayinka Oluwaseun, the Assistant Public Relations Officer of Ogun State Fire Service. We have him here today with us. He has been ready for us, in fact, as earlier than the scheduled time. So we welcome you, sir, HSF Ajayi.
Thank you very much. That's at all. Welcome to us again. It is important. Make sure you see me. As I've said earlier, my name is HFS. HFS is the highest fire superintendent. Ajayi Olayinka Oluwaseun. I also work directly with Corporate Fiscal Officer of the state, CFS, Abimbola Kuti. I want to tell all our viewers that if you please share this program or invite more people to join us, because we are going to enjoy ourselves this evening to the fullest. We are ready to intimate ourselves, to remind ourselves, and to lecture ourselves on what fire safety management is all about. I know that most of us have heard about this lecture and we know about fire safety. That is why those group of people, what we do to them is just to find even that there are some people who are online. Engineer Fatai, Abide.
Sorry, there's audio loss. You can't hear. There's audio loss.
But I want to solicit for something. I want this lecture to be an interactive one, because fire safety management, we cannot deal with it in a day, not to talk of a few minutes that we have this evening. That is why maybe there's a special area or there's a question that has been bothering your mind. I want you to please jot them down. And when I'm going to give room for question and answer. So in case maybe we have not dwell much on the area of your interest, please, you have the opportunity to ask the question. When there's during the time of the question and answer period. Thank you very much. As we have known, this evening lecture furthers on fire safety management, organized by, facilitated by Accurate Creative Minds Foundation. I want to say something about this foundation. You know, this Nigeria that we are, let me say in Africa, you hardly find such foundation that will bring this innovative idea to the general public. So, give a round of applause to this foundation, Accurate Creative Minds Foundation, for this laudable initiative idea to bring this opportunity to us. And I want to say something again. This type of lecture, when we are being invited to some places, organization, I know what it costs them. So Accurate Foundation, you have done well. We need such foundation, more of this foundation in Nigeria to better the lot of our country. Thank you. I want to especially thank you, Mr. Babatunde Odedele, the host of today. You have done very much, sir, and the crew of the Accurate Creative Mind Foundation. Because of our time, let's go to the business of the day, fire safety management. And I want to ask this question. Apart from fire outbreak, what other emergency or what other occurrence that may warrant a person or group of persons to desert a place? As in, what other occurrences that may make you to run away from your home or your house, your office, that may make you to run away, to run out? What are those likely occurrences apart from fire outbreak? What are that other emergency situations that may warrant you to quickly run out of your home, your office, your dwelling place? Please, I'm asking that question. If you
Flood. Hello, flood.
Today, we are told you that we are going to be discussing about fire safety management. And the primary aim of this evening lecture and objective of today's lecture is based on three things. The aim and objective of today's lecture is based on what? On three things. Wherever you may be, to know what fire is all about. We have brought this seminar to you so that you will know what fire is all about. That is number one aim and objective of today's lecture. Please pay rapt attention, because at the end of everything, I'm still going to ask you some questions that will make me to confirm that truly you are listening to what we have been saying. I say that the aim and objective of today's lecture is to know what? To know what fire is all about. So we are going to be telling you what fire in general term is all about. The nitty-gritty that you need to know about fire, we'll be telling you this evening via the course of this lecture. Number two aim and objective of this lecture is for you to be acquainted with various preventive measures of fire. You know, this evening, we are going to be telling you different ways, preventive measures that you ought to know to prevent fire outbreak. And the number three objective of this lecture is for you to be able to contain, control, and suppress fire in case of eventuality. What do I mean? It means that we are going to be
Hello, we can't hear anything. No, we can't hear. Oh.
management. What we are doing today this evening is part of fire safety management. We are educating ourselves on those things that we can do to prevent fire, and those other things that we can do to mitigate the outbreak of fire. Because when there's fire outbreak, it has multiplier effects on human beings. So what we are doing today in essence is part of fire safety management, because we are educating ourselves on what is on the nitty-gritty of fire and those things that we can do to prevent it. That is why I said that fire safety management is all about putting in place various measures, behaviors, arrangements, etc., that are geared toward the prevention or control of fire outbreak. You will agree with me that in Nigeria and across the globe, hundreds of people die in fire incidents. Millions of naira worth of goods, building and property are also being destroyed. This is the truth about fire. When there's a fire outbreak, many times it leads to death. It leads to injury. Properties that are worth millions of naira will destroy. Buildings will be razed down. I don't want to be giving us different incidents that has happened in this nation. We all know it happens in Lagos, it happens here in Abeokuta, it happens across the globe where fires break has occurred that leads to death of many people. Because of stigmatization, I don't want to be mentioning names and properties in this Ogun State and Lagos in particular, that fire break has grown. Now, when we talk of fire safety management, there are two things, two major steps in fire safety management circle. So when you hear the word fire safety management, there are two steps, it has two circles. That fire safety management embedded in these two circles, which is number one, prevention. Number two, preparedness. Fire safety management embedded in these two circles. Number one, prevention, and number two is preparedness. What is prevention? Prevention as an act of fire safety management is being proactive. It's a major active step of preventing or avoiding fire disaster. Prevention is a major active step of preventing or avoiding fire disaster. All of you will agree with me that prevention, they say, is better than cure. So when we talk of fire safety management, number one thing that we're going to be looking at is prevention. Because prevention is far better than cure. You also agree with me that firefighter worldwide, the best fire fought is fire prevented. The fire that you prevented from occurring, that's the best fire that you can fight. It means when you prevent it, you know there will be no need for fighting it. So when you hear the word fire safety management, what comes to mind in this circle is prevention and preparedness. I've told you that prevention involves identifying potential fire hazards and create a solution that can help to hinder the occurrences or minimize the impact. That is prevention. Basically, it involves identifying potential fire hazard. Where you are, what are those things that can cause fire? That is what we refer to fire hazard. So when you identify them, then you create a solution that can help you to hinder them, to hinder the fire from occurring. So that is what is called prevention. Not to happen at all is better than you allowing fire to happen, then you now be running scatter to fight the fire. When I say fight the fire, that's the time we use in fire service. It means to extinguish the fire. Now, number two circle of fire safety management is preparedness. Preparedness is when individual, group of persons, organizations, etc., plan and train for what to do in response to a likely fire outbreak. That is preparedness. You also note that part of preparedness is what we are doing today. What we are doing today is ultimately fire safety management, because today we are going to be looking at prevention method and we're going to be looking at preparedness. How are we going to prepare for ourselves? You know, I told you that prevention is better than cure. We all know that. So fire safety management circle embedded, it lies on prevention and preparedness. Prevention is not to allow fire to happen. We are going to be telling you what are those things that you can do that will not make fire to happen. Then preparedness, the second fold, it means it's just an opposite of prevention. It means in case this fire happens, because if you say it's not going to happen, what if it happens? Then what are you going to do? How are you going to respond to it? Those are the major steps in fire safety circle. One, prevention, and number two is preparedness. I hope all of our viewers can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. We are with you.
Thank you very much. Now, let me just give you a brief outline of what we're going to be discussing today. We'll fast as much as possible in order to cover some of these things. I know you can't exhaust all of this outline, but we'll try as much as possible to do what we can do as time and God permit us. Now, I'm going to be telling us fire safety. Fire aims and objective of fire safety management. Aims and objective of fire safety, and of course, we have done that. Then number three is, what is fire? When you hear fire, what comes to your mind? Those are today's outline we are going to be looking at. Number four, element of fire. Number five, principle of fire extinction or extinguishing method. When we say principle of fire extinction, it means what are those things? How do you tackle fire? How do you fight fighters of Ogun State Fire Service as attended to? We are going to be showing you some of the pictures that will avoid fire, that can lead to the avoidance of fire outbreak. Then we are going to be telling you again what to do if your clothes catches fire. This thing, some people have been a victim of these things, but they don't know what to do. And if you do otherwise, if you do contrary, it will backfire. It will affect you more. The fire will burn more. So we're going to be telling you what you need to do if in case your clothes catches fire. Another thing we're going to be looking at, if time permits us, is what to do in case of a fire outbreak. Many of us, we are working in a company, we are working in an organization, we have our various houses that we live in. We don't pray for fire outbreak, but if it eventually happens, what are you going to do? We are going to be telling us today, and of course, we are going to be giving us the fire service toll-free number in Nigeria. We have a common toll-free number for fire service in Nigeria. We are going to be telling you, and for those of us that resides in Ogun State, we are going to be giving you numbers of all of our fire stations that are spread across the length and breadth of Ogun State. Can we proceed?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And I told you that today's lecture is going to be an interactive section. And I also told you, for those of us that are joining us, that prevention, there's an area that you want us to dwell much, or you want to know much more about. Please put them down. And when we get to the question and answer segment, you'll be given an opportunity to ask your question so that we can respond to it appropriately. Because fire safety, we can't exhaust all what it has for us. So any area that you felt we have not touched, you can bring it to our awareness by asking us a question in that area. Then what is fire? What is fire? I don't want to ask the audience because I know some of us, we are learner fellow. So I don't want to bore us, I don't want to disturb us because there's no time for that. If not so, I would have loved to ask my audience to tell me the idea they have about fire. Because fire service across the length and breadth of Nigeria, we are very good. We have been handling our humanitarian service across Ogun State and beyond. We do go out time to time to go and educate Nigerians on fire safety. So I know that some of us that are listening to us this evening, you must have come across this type of lecture. But today, those of you in that category that already knows more about what we're going to be discussing about, I'm just telling you that you should relax so that you can find maybe more, 1 or 2 things to learn from this lecture this evening. And those ones, people that are listening to us, listening to this type of lecture for the very first time, I want you to pay more attention so that you can get whatever we have for you this evening. What is fire? Fire is a chemical reaction known as combustion. And when you hear the word combustion, the literary meaning is burning. The literary meaning of combustion is burning. So I say fire is a chemical reaction known as combustion, which occur as a result of coming together of 3 distinct ignition sources or elements of heat, fuel, and oxygen, thereby results into production of flame and light. I know what I just gave you as the definition of fire seems cumbersome to some of us, but I'm going to simplify what I've just said so that every one of us will grab. Fire is also popularly defined as the rapid combination of 2 or more combustible substances resulting in the production of heat and light. Let me explain what I have defined for you as a fire. What I have said, in essence, I want to summarize it, is that that fire, that thing that you know as fire, before we refer to it as combustion, which is burning in a literary meaning, burning. Then before that burning can occur, before you can see anything burning, before you can say that this thing is burning. For example, if you lit a candle, you will see fire coming out. If you set your gas or your stove, fire will come out. If you are burning something, fire will come out. That thing that will cause fire, before you can see it, 3 things must come together, and that is what we refer to as element of fire. That's why we said the definition is a chemical reaction. Those chemical reactions are those 3 distinct things that comes together. When they come together, when they mix with each other, they form a chemical reaction known as combustion. So those 3 things, we refer to them as elements of fire. Elements of fire. And there are 3 things. By saying element of fire, it means those distinct components or ingredients that must be present and get in touch with each other before fire occurs. I repeat myself, I say by saying element of fire, it means the components or ingredients that must be present and get in touch with each other. Those 3 things, those 3 components that we refer to as element of fire, they must come together, they must mix together before ignition can take place, before fire can occur. When I say ignition, I mean fire. Before fire can take place, before fire can occur, those 3 things must mix together. That is why we define fire as chemical reactions. The chemical reaction is between those 3 things, which we know as number 1, fuel, number 2, heat, and oxygen. So anywhere that you see fire, anywhere at all, maybe in your anywhere, you all know what is fire, it's burning. So anywhere you see burning, that burning is taking place, 3 things has come together. If those 3 things refuse to come together, burning cannot take place, fire cannot occur. And those 3 things, I say, they are fuel, heat, and oxygen. Fuel, heat, and oxygen. Please pay attention to all these things, because this theoretical aspect of what we are telling you There are those things that prevent, that makes fire to occur. And if you know them now, if you know them, you not allow them to mix together. For example, in your kitchen, if you know those three things that are going to tell you, those three things that come together to produce fire, if you know them, they are in every place. By the time you go on the national, I will simplify those things to you. You know that they are in every place. They are in your kitchen. They are in your offices. If you allow them not to come together, fire will not come. Fire will not take place. That is why pay attention to them. We define fire as chemical reactions that we refer to as combustion. Those three things, we call them elements of fire, which is fuel, heat, oxygen. Then, by saying fuel, what do I mean? I want to explain the element of fire now. Number one, I say fuel. Then, what is fuel? Fuel is termed as any substance or substances that can burn. Fuel is termed as any substance or substances that can burn, or anything that has the potential or features to get burnt. Note those words. Anything that can burn, or anything that has the potential to get burnt. That is what we refer to as fuel. So many people, when they hear fuel, they used to think that maybe that fuel that you get at the petrol station. Yes, that is just part of fuel. That is what? Part of fuel. A segment of fuel. So I'm going to ask a question now. When we define fuel as anything that can burn, or anything that has the potential or features to get burned, then what are we referring to? Can somebody just give us an example of any substance that can burn, or that has the potential to get burnt? Can anyone give us any example of such things, such substances? Hello?
Paper.
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 Thank you very much. Paper, that's nice. Another one.
Nylon or nylon.
Nylon. That's good. Now, I want you to do this for me. Look at your environment. Wherever you are viewing us from, look at your environment. Look at those things that has the potential to burn, to get burnt. Or those things that has the potential to get burnt. Or any substances that can burn in that environment that you are, that particular area that you are now. Mention maybe two things that can get burnt. Now, where I have now, I have this seed. I don't know, maybe I see this is, I have paper here. This paper, I'm giving you my own example. It's fuel. It has the potential to get burnt, and it can burn if you set fire on it. So this is my paper. This is a computer system in my front. It can get burnt. I've measured my own. Somebody said paper and nylon. Yes. What other things that has the potential to get burnt?
You have dry grasses. Dry grasses.
Now, thank you. In order for us not to waste most of our time, there's nothing in this world. There's nothing in this world that cannot do what? That cannot get burnt. Or if you have anything in this world, or any substance that cannot get burnt. No, absolutely, God has created everything in this world to be an object of fire. The only book that we carry, the Bible, the Quran, they all testify to this. There's nothing in this world that God has created that will not get burnt, that doesn't have the potential to get burnt. The difference is that the degree at which item A, like this paper, is going to get burnt or is going to react to fire might be different from which item B will react to fire. But there's nothing in this world that God has created that cannot get burnt or that cannot catch fire. That is why I asked you that you look at your environment, where you are being us from, and give us example. So those your clothes, your bed, the television, everything that you can name can get burnt. Fuel, petrol, diesel, food generally, they are also fuel. So
kerosene.
even human being is a fuel. Or you agree that human being is a fuel too?
Yes.
Yes, because human being has the potential to get born, and human being can also burn. We have seen series of human beings that has caught fire and got burned, isn't it? So in this world, there's nothing that I cannot get burned. That is fuel by that. So when you say fuel is anything that can get burnt. We have mentioned, don't forget, we are looking at the three components that comes together before fire takes place. Number one is fuel, number two is heat. Heat is a rise in temperature, which serves as an ignition source. Heat is a rise in temperature. The ignition sources that can bring heat include spark. When there's a spark, we all know what is a spark. It can come from sources of heat, can be from a spark. We can get heat from sun energy, sun, then earth surface. Those are the sources of heat. Friction, electrical energy, open flame. Those are the various sources of heat.
Thunder
So
spark.
heat is a rise in temperature, which serves as an ignition source. So that is heat by that. I said there are various sources of heat. It can come as a result of a spark. It can come as a result of sun energy. It can come from earth surface. It can come from friction. Friction, like if you strike like two stones together or two iron together, friction will take place. That's the source of heat. Electrical energy, open flame. Those are the various sources of heat. Then number three thing is oxygen. When those three things come together, fire will start. That is the essence of what we are saying. When you air fire, these three things are mixed together as a chemical reaction to form a combustion. So we have explained fuel, that anything that can burn, and we have told you heat, which is a rise in the temperature, which serves as an ignition source. And we have given you an example of a heat, the sources of heat like spark, sun, earth surface, etc. Then number three, oxygen. Oxygen is an element of fire that can best be explained or understood as the normal atmospheric air. I mean, oxygen that is how we can best explain it. Normal atmospheric air. That is air. So when those three things comes together now, where anything that can burn, anything at all, I don't want to give example, but anything at all that can burn, it comes together with heat, like sunlight energy, earth surface, electrical energy, open flame, friction. Then mixed together with oxygen. Those three things coming together, they produce fire. By the time you go on this lecture, you will understand better of what we are saying. Now, I told you that for fire to start, who can mention those three things that must come together that must come into contact as a chemical reaction for a fire to start? Somebody should mention two elements. One of our viewers
Fuel.
mentioned just elements.
Fuel,
Hello?
heat, and oxygen.
Fuel, heat,
And
and oxygen. Thank
yes,
you very
sir.
much. So when those three things come together, it will bring what is known as fire. So anywhere you see fire, maybe you take a matches and light the matches. It produces fire. What you have just successfully done is that you have brought those three things together. You have brought those three things together. Because if those three things does not come together, fire will not come out. By the time going on this lecture, you understand better. Then now, if you want to extinguish those three things, as you can see, those are those three things. The fuel, heat, oxygen. They are not in particular order. Fuel, heat, and oxygen. Those are those three things. It's a three triangle. We also call it triangle of combustion. Now, it has three legs. The triangle has a three leg. So when those three legs come together, fire will start. Now, for you to now extinguish fire successfully, we call it principle of fire extinction or principle of fire extinguishing method. That means, how do you extinguish fire? We want to give you those methods now. This is still like more of a theoretical aspect of this lecture because we want to acquaint you with what fire is actually about so that you can know what to do. We have told you that when those three triangles come together, those three elements, they have that triangle that has three legs. The heat, the oxygen, and the fuel. When they come together, it results into fire. Now, for you to now extinguish that fire, is what we call principle of or extinguishing method. It is what we have to do. That one too has three triangles. You can extinguish fire in three methods. It's either cooling method, smoldering method, or starvation method. That is the extinction principle. This three triangle, don't forget, I'm going back to it so that you can really grab this section. I told you that three things must come together to form a fire: oxygen, fuel, and heat. Now, if you want to extinguish that fire, one of those three things must be removed. If one of those three things can be removed, one leg can be removed, maybe oxygen or heat or fuel can be removed from that triangle that has three legs, the fire will die a natural death. Those three things, fuel, oxygen, and heat, we call it triangle of combustion. If one leg of that triangle, no triangle has a three leg. If one leg can be removed out of the leg of that triangle, the fire will collapse. So now, this is the principle now. This is the principle. It's a very simple principle. Those triangle, one of the leg that has the heat. If you want to use that method, you can use cooling method. Cooling method. And what do you understand by that cooling method? It's just removal of heat. You know, heat is one of the very important components of fire triangle in the triangle of combustion. Heat is one of the very important leg of that triangle. So if you want to use this cooling method now, you have to remove that leg through cooling method. And the best cooling media is water. So when there is fire outbreak, you know, those three things have come together. So if you want to extinguish it now, one of those methods that you can use is cooling. We have different agents of cooling, different approach that you can use to extinguish fire through cooling method. But the best agent or what you can use if you want to approach the extinguishing of fire through cooling method is applying water. I'm going to be telling you as we progress in this course of this lecture. So another leg is smoldering. We refer to it as a smoldering. So if you want to use smoldering method is known as reducing of oxygen, to reduce oxygen or to cut off the supply of oxygen. When you cut off the supply of oxygen in a fire outbreak, the fire will automatically die. It will die a natural death. It will collapse. You know, oxygen is one of the important components of fire, component of element of fire, of what we know as triangle of combustion. So oxygen, when you want to use smoldering method, what we are saying in essence is that you do what? You reduce or you cut off the supply of oxygen. I told you that oxygen can best be described as normal atmospheric air. So when you cut it off, you have successfully applied smoldering method or fire extinguishing method. You can use different approach in achieving this. You can use blankets. You can use, there are some fire extinguishers that works with this approach, smoldering approach or fire extinguishing method. So another thing is starvation. Starvation is the removal of fuel or removal of combustible materials. So when we say fuel, we have told you that fuel is anything that can burn. So now if there's a fire outbreak, that fire must be burning something. For example, if there's a fire outbreak in a particular room or in an office, something must be burning in that room. Maybe rug, chair, couch chair, plastic chair, name it. Something must be burning. So if you want to extinguish that fire that is burning, it's for you to remove that thing that is burning, provided it is safe to do so. Provided it's what? It is safe to do so. You have to remove that component that we call fuel that is burning. You have to remove it. So that is starvation method. Starvation is just like Yoruba will say, "Toba fi ebi payan." I think that's the word. Yes, you starve something. So when you starve something to a particular to an extent, that thing will die. So that's just when something is burning, when there's a fire outbreak in a particular place or an environment. If you want to use starvation approach to extinguish that fire, you have to remove those things that is burning. Those things that are left to be touched by the fire, you have to remove them. But you have to be careful so that in the process of doing that, you don't enjoy yourself. For example, in a room now, if things are burning in that room, what you do is that look for things that are yet to consume by that fire, then take them away, like chairs, clothing, anything at all, documents. Because if you leave them, all of them, they are fuel to fire. You will call them onje, you know, anything at all. So when you take them or you move them away from that place, you stop the fire and the fire will die a natural death. The triangle will collapse. The triangle will collapse. We still have a long way to go. We have to rush ourselves now because of the time, because we have so many things to discuss. Fire safety discussion is not a day lecture. It's not even a 2-day lecture, but we will just want to try as much as possible to summarize some of those things so that we can grab a little bit. Maybe we'll find time to come back again if we can't exhaust all what we have here for us today. Because I know many of you will have some questions that we have not dealt with, but we still have. Anyway, the host of today just informed him now that maybe we'll have this part 2 of this lecture next week. Next week, that means that we are not going to rush ourselves. We are not going to rush ourselves because we still have a long way to go. All these things we are telling us now, is just for us to wet the ground so that we can have a background knowledge of what fire is all about and what fire safety management is all about. So because if you have gotten all these key aspects of what we are doing, what we have been telling us since an hour, maybe an hour, up to an hour or 30 minutes thereabout, it will give more understanding to allow you to grab the nitty-gritty of fire safety management. Now, having exhaust some period to explain the principle of fire extinguishment or extinguishing method, which we told you we have the cooling method, the shutting off of air, that is what we refer as cooling method, removal of heat, that is cooling method. When you remove heat, you know, when there is heat now, you know heat now, rise in temperature. So what can you use to cool it? Because if there is still a rise in temperature, fire will continue to get burned. But so if you want to extinguish that fire, you cool it down. So what you can use to do that is water. You can use other agents or other media device to do it, but the best cooling agent is water. We told you about smoldering. Smoldering is the cutting of the supply of oxygen. Oxygen is air. Yeah. Though we have some other components that are embedded in oxygen, but for this discourse purpose, let's just call it normal atmospheric air. That is oxygen. So if you want to stop a fire, you shut out oxygen. What do I mean now? Let me just give you an example. If there's a fire outbreak in a particular environment, maybe in a room, I'll be using that a room or an office for my case study. If you want to limit that fire to that particular office or to that particular room, just shut the window and the door. When you shut the window and the door, the fire will be burning. But by the time the fire will exhaust the oxygen in that room, if the fire can exhaust the oxygen in that room, the fire will die a natural death because there's no more oxygen in that room because you have shut the windows and the door. That is why when there's a fire outbreak and you are running out, make sure you shut the door, provided there's nobody inside. If there is somebody inside or there are people that there are other people that will use the door as an escape route, you can't shut it. But if there's nobody, when you shut it, you close the window, the fire will not burn beyond that jurisdiction. Even if it's going to burn beyond that jurisdiction, it will take time. That is smoldering method, shutting out or cutting off the supply of oxygen. Then starvation. Starvation is removal of fuel. Removal of fuel. That means, and we have told you that fuel is anything that can burn. So if there is a burning fire outbreak anywhere, those things that can burn, that can lead to continuation of the fire, when you remove them, the fire will stop. When there's nothing to consume again, when there's no fuel again, when there's no food. Fuel is just the food, we can call it in a layman language, the food the fire eats. That is the fuel. So when there's no food for this fire now, the fire will do what? The fire will collapse. Things that are burning, when you separate them, when you remove them, the fire will collapse. And I want to give us one analogy of this fire elements, those three elements. You know that in the olden days, not even in the olden days, up to this present age, when we want to make a local, maybe we want to use fire, or what is it called now? Yoruba will call it arrow. I don't know what they call it now, but Yoruba people will call it arrow. You want to cook something on arrow. All of you should understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not telling us about a stove fire or gas cooker fire. No, now this one is, we call it arrow. That's traditional cooking method. If you want to set it up, what will you do? Particularly in the village, they will put 3 stones. When they put 3 stones, they will put some of these components like wood. There's something they call it iha. I don't know what they call it in English now, but they call it, Yoruba people will call it iha. They will call it some ogusho. They will put all those components. Those components that they are adding to that fire to set it up, they are fuel. The wood, the hair, the ogusho, and all those things, they are fuel. They put it down. Now, what will they go and do? They will go and source for it. That's why when we are explaining it, we told you that source of it is sunlight energy. Source of it is friction. Source of it is earth surface. So now, don't forget, the traditional fire, they have put down wood, iha, ogusho. Now, that is fuel. We want to look for it now. They will now go and look for it. Maybe they will go and take 2 stones, akaokuta. They will strike the 2 stones together. From that, it will generate it. Spark will come because source of its energy is spark. The spark can come from electrical spark. That is why if you have your wiring, when you notice spark, please kindly pay attention to it because it's a source of heat. If there is fuel in that environment, that vicinity, that there's a spark. If the spark should contact the fuel, it will result into fire. Now, the person will now do what? After getting the firewood, the ogusho, and the hair, the person will go and look for it. And the seeds, and the heat source in the olden days, now it's not now that we have matches. No, they will put 2 stones together and strike it together. It will bring a spark. What would that do? The fire will do what? Will come up. So that you will not also notice them that if the fire refuses to come up, maybe the smoke is coming up gradually, they will now put their mouth to blow the fire by doing. From that, what will happen? There will be a spark of fire. The fire will start burning. So that explains the triangle of combustion. That it summarizes what we have been saying. That if you have heat, triangle has 3 legs. One leg has heat, one leg has oxygen, another leg has fuel. When those things come together, it will bring fire. So now, as we have explained, in your area, because I'm going to ask you a question now, in your room and your office, I've asked you that you should give me an example of it. You should give me an example of fuel. And somebody answered that nylon paper. You have known that. Now, somebody should give me a source of it in that your vicinity that you are now. That place that you are at the moment, look around and give me source of it. And look at your outside your immediate environment and give me source of it. So that I want to know, maybe you really grab all what you have been explaining before we go further. I'm listening. Hello, is somebody still online?
Yes, we are still online, sir.
So yes, somebody should give us, you look at your environment, give us likely source of heat where you are, and you look beyond that your environment, give us source of heat.
Our matches or our lighter.
Thank you. Our matches, our lighter.
Then there's this new gadget as well. They call spark.
Yes,
socket.
Our electrical socket. They are source of hot surface. If you plug your iron and you refuse to use it, if you plug maybe your heater, your electrical stove, and you refuse to remove them from the source, of energy. They now get hot, the temperature will increase. Don't forget, we are looking at heat. So all those things that we have mentioned, they are sources of heat to fire. And we have explained fuel. We have explained it now. Then oxygen. Oxygen, it can be gotten from anywhere. Even without oxygen, human being cannot survive. So without atmospheric air, human being cannot even survive. So there's nowhere. Oxygen, you don't need to go and look for oxygen anywhere. That place that you have atmospheric air. That is a natural blessing of Almighty God to all human beings in the surface of this planet. So you will agree with me now that that place that you have, fire can start in that place. In as much as possible that those three things can be found in that place that you have. In this place that I have too, we have fuel. This my cloth is a fuel. Even human flesh, human body is a fuel. It has the efficiency to get burnt. We have other materials, other components, woody material, plastic. Name them. They are all fuel. And we have source of heat. Many of us now, we have electrical wiring, electrical energy in our various homes. They can spark. And oxygen is not far from where you are. So if those three things can come together, they will fall, fire will start. And we also told you that to extinguish a fire, theoretically, I want you to grab it. To extinguish the fire, one leg out of that three legs that make up the fire triangle must be removed. If you can successfully remove one leg out of that triangle, the fire will die a natural death. Can we continue or we should call it a day? Don't forget, the host of today has given us next week another opportunity to meet. So can we continue? Now I've been told that we have 10 minutes more. Ordinarily, we ought to use these 10 minutes to entertain questions. But since we have not really done much of our work today, so if I ask you to begin to ask me questions now, it seems that we don't know what we are doing, because we know that some of your questions, we are going to do justice to them. So that is why today I may not really entertain question, because we will entertain question. We have time to do that next week. Now let us just go to classification of fire. Then we'll call it a day, because we have 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Then when we say classification of fire, we mean, I want you to get this classification, because when there's fire outbreak, we don't pray for it. We are still going to be telling you those things that you can do to prevent it. And you also, even from what we have discussed over, we have successfully told you what you can do to avoid fire outbreak. Because I told you that for fire to occur, three things must come together. So now, if you want to avoid fire outbreak, you must not allow those three things to come together at all. That means that, for example, in your house, in your office, where you have fuel, even yourself, you have fuel, because you can burn. So you stand as a fuel. Other components, the chest, the canopy, anything at all that can burn. So what you do now to avoid fire is that you will not allow those three things to come into contact with each other. What do I mean? That's why I asked you to give me an example where you can get source of heat. And thank God someone mentioned spark. Yes. So anything that can cause spark in that place that you have, please make sure you take care of them. And this occurs through wiring. Sometimes wiring our wiring, our sockets, outlets, they can cause spark. When you plug too much of devices in one socket or outlet, it might bring spark. Though we have other sources of spark, of heat, like thunderstorm, those are the other sources. That is why we are telling you that classification of fire, it is important because eventually fire happens. You will know the type of fire that is burning, and you will know what method you are going to deploy to extinguish such fire. Because if you deploy a wrong method to a fire, because there's no two fire that are alike. So if a fire is burning, as somebody that has listened to this type of a lecture, you have to know that this fire that is burning falls under this classification, falls under this type. So you will quickly know the best method to tackle the outbreak. Now, classification of fire. Number one, we have class A fire. Class A fire, this is a fire involving free burning material, such as wood, paper, textile, plastic, rubber, furniture, etc. So when wood, paper, textile, plastic, rubbers, furniture, even human being, when they are burning, we categorize them as class A fire. All those type of fire, if you have water, you can extinguish them successfully. Water is the best extinguishing approach that you can use to tackle such fire. When a wood, paper, textile, plastic, rubber, furniture, when they are burning, they are classified under class A fire. Now, class B fire. Class B fire is the type of fire ignited by flammable liquid. When you say flammable, you all know flammable. Something that can burn rapidly when exposed to fire. So class B fire is the type of fire ignited by flammable liquid. Flammable liquid like petrol, diesel, kerosene, paint, paraffin, etc. They are flammable liquid. So we classify them under class B. So when the petrol is burning, or diesel, or kerosene, or paraffin, or paint, any flammable liquid, it is under class B fire. So the way to tackle, one of the advantage of getting acquainted with all this classification of fire is that when a particular fire is burning, you will know that this type of fire that is burning falls under this classification. Then you will know the approach to tackle such fire. Now, if a petrol is burning, or diesel, or paint, as somebody that has exposed his or herself to fire lecture like this, you will know that this type of fire that is burning falls under class what? Class what? Class B. Now, to tackle this type of fire, don't use water. If you use water is not effective in this type of fire. To extinguish this type of fire, water is not going to be effective. It's not that water will not work for it, but it's not going to be effective as other device. Mind me, so maybe some of us that have attended a lecture like this, they will tell you that don't use water. You cannot use water. No, I'm telling you today, as an operational firefighter, I'm telling you today that when a petrol, diesel, kerosene is burning, you can use water, but the but is that the water is not going to be effective as other agents that you can make use of. It's not that it will not extinguish the fire, but it's not going to be effective. What do I mean by effective? It means that it will not extinguish the fire on time. The fire will continue burning. It will take much time, much effort to extinguish the fire with ordinary water, unless you use other agents. But if you use other agents, ordinarily, like want to use 10 minutes in something now, if you use other agents to tackle that fire, you may end up using like 2 minutes. But if you refuse to use such appropriate agent, I want to use water, it may take you like 15 minutes. See now, something that you order to have used like 2 minutes, you are now ending using 15 to 20 minutes. That is just it. So fire can work for this type of. Let me even tell you, there's no class of fire that water cannot work for, but it's just that the effectiveness on each class differ. It works for class A 100% perfectly. That is water. But other classes, it doesn't work 100% for them. That is why we have other agents that we can use. We're still going to be talking about it next week. I think I have like 2 or how many minutes more, sir? Now, 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes more. I've told you about class A fire, class B fire. This is class C now. Class C fire, this is a gaseous fire. Let me just put it like that. When we say gaseous fire, fire that needs to do with gas. No, we have different types of gas. We have LPG, we have CNG, we have different types of gas. Like that LPG now is naturally liquefied petroleum gas. That is the domestic gas that we use in our home. So when a fire is burning that needs to do with gas, we call it class C fire. That type of fire falls under class C fire. Then we have class D fire. Class D fire involves combustible metals like aluminum, lithium, potassium, magnesium, anything that needs to do with metals. Let me just put that way. That is class C fire. Now we have class E. This is simply an electrical fire. It is worth to know that electrical fire in UK is not classified as any specific class of fire. Their opinion is that any fire triggered by electrical source must fall in the other already identified class of fire. So, class C fire, American class C classify electrical fire as class E, but in UK, they don't classify any fire under class E. They believe that any fire that is burning through electrical fire, it will burn other things that falls on other existing or already identified class of fire. And because of academic purpose, we have to abide by UK standard. Now, class F. According to UK classification of fire, class F is caused by cooking oils and fats. Generally, we refer class F fire as kitchen fire. Kitchen fire. Some of us, you have fried obi or akara before. That your oil that you put on your frying pan, if it caught fire, what will you do? Will you put water on it? If you put water, what will happen? The fire will burn more. So that is why we are telling us different types of fire. We are putting ourselves with those classes so that when we meet or we see those types of fire, then we know how to tackle them. That is the essence of this lecture, of this classification of fire. That's why it is very, very important to pay an attention to this class of fire. Now, maybe 2 minutes more before the end of the lecture, finally, based on what we have discussed so far, I want you to ask a question. Based on what we have discussed today, I told you that the host of today, they have given us another opportunity to be here next week to meet ourselves to continue this lecture. So, but what we have asked today, please, we want you to ask a question or any question that relates to what we have discussed so far today. If there's no question, we are going to call it a day now because we are going to meet ourselves next week. But I believe there are still some questions you want to ask on another area that you don't really get. You can ask because we still have other things to do. I'm waiting patiently for your question. The absence of none, I think the host will be in the best position to come and take over now, having done justice to some of the things that we have for us today. Don't forget, I told you that we can't do justice to fire safety management in the day, even 2 days, not to talk of a few hours. So I'm using this opportunity to step aside for our host today to come and do the needful. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. HFS Ajayi. Really appreciate your lecture. In fact, you have opened our eyes. It's good you're having 2 sessions for this program. Today is just like an introduction, going through the material that you have shared with us. In fact, I did not know anything about fire before. I didn't know anything. Now I'm getting to know so many other things. I really appreciate you. So let me give the audience some opportunity to ask questions. Do you have anybody that have questions there? If you have questions, you can just unmute yourself and speak.
Particularly based on what we have discussed today.
Yes. Let your question be related to what we have discussed today, because we still have other things to discuss next week. If you have questions, you can signify by raising your hand or type the question in the chat box. In the absence of question, though I would like to reserve it till next week, but just to at least stimulate us. My first question is that you said you can use water for class A fire, which is maybe petrol.
Class A fire is food burning material type of fire, like wood, paper, plastic, rubber. Those are particular fire that falls on class A. And the best extinguishing agent is water.
Okay.
Water.
So the question now is it the ordinary water or water that has been added soap to? Because sometimes they will say add detergent to the water.
Now, we get there. Ordinary water, you don't need to add anything. Even that soap that they used to add, they say soap, if I am correct, they mean detergent. Because local people, they say, they are just trying to achieve one class of extinguishing media, which we know as foam compound media. We'll get there by this of goodness. But this type of class A fire is ordinary water. You don't need to add anything. If that type of fire is burning, like wood, paper, textile, plastic, rubber, furniture, even human being, you don't need to add anything. Water will do justice to it. But there are other kinds of fire that ordinary water will not be effective to tackle.
Thank you, sir. The second question is this: that in case there is fire outbreak in the room, you can close the window, close the doors. Yes. That when the oxygen in the environment has been expended, the fire will go off. But we have realized that so many ways. Maybe after the close of work in the office, many they would have locked the windows, locked the door, and yet there will be a fire break. There will be a fire break that will now, in fact, take up all the building. Why did the fire stop when it exhausted the oxygen in the apartment that the fire started from?
Now,
closing the door and the window can extinguish the fire, sir.
Thank you very much. The reason why those type of fire cannot stop is because in as much the fire can still get fuel. And what is fuel? The food the fire eats. In as much there are things in that environment that fire can still burn, the fire will continue. And I told you that the degree at which a particular item is going to get burnt might be different from other items. For instance, if you have a wooden wardrobe and you have an iron wardrobe, if there's a fire outbreak, the wooden wardrobe will catch fire instantly. Instantly, it will catch fire. So, in as much as there's still fuel, That is why now, if you are in a room that is being decked, maybe 2-story and a story building, and you are in the middle floor or the first floor, if there is fire outbreak in that particular area, you shut the door or the windows, the fire will be restricted to that room. Particularly if you use maybe an iron window. That is why when we are constructing our homes, our various houses, the material we use in all those construction matters. In building fire service, there's what we call building construction. Building construction, we have some passive and active devices or material. So in some passive material like door, windows, if you use combustible material for your doors, if there is a fire outbreak, like wooden door, like the other person used an iron door, the fire will affect the wooden door more than the person that uses the iron door. So that is why in an environment, you try to combine both passive and active fire safety together. So when you want to build your house, try as much as possible. Don't use more of combustible materials. In some offices now, they will use wood to partition those offices. Instead of them to use, they want to manage the office, they will now use to partition the office. If there's a fire outbreak, it will burn that wood immediately. But if they have used like iron sheet to partition the office, when fire comes, it will restrict the fire. So that person that uses iron sheet to partition the office, and the other fellow uses wood or plywood to partition the office, that person that uses iron has successfully engaged in a very good passive fire safety management. But if you don't know all those things, you just, I don't want to waste my money. Go and buy wood, go and buy plywood, use it to partition this office for me. When fire comes, it will destroy it more instanter than the person that uses iron sheet. So what we're saying in essence, if there is still fuel in that environment, the fire will continue burning. But in an environment that there's no fuel, by the time the fire starts burning, when the oxygen is exhausted, the fire will collapse. But if there is still fuel, the fire will continue burning, That's what we meant, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I was expecting some questions from the audience. No question from me. I think they are reserving the questions to next week. So really appreciate you. Really appreciate your explanations. In fact, which you have given us that have already helped us a lot. So which by the next week, when you now complete the teachings, I think now be different from before. Really appreciate you, sir. Appreciate you once again.
Thank you, sir.
Hope to see you next week. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. So see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.